What do you get when you combine the movement controls from Titanfall 2, the shooting from Maximum Action, and the arena-style combat of Doom 2016? All wrapped up in an 80s neon-soaked aesthetic. Well, you get to the Orange Door. Not the best name for a video game, but names can be deceiving. The goal of the game is simple: kill everything and get to an orange door at the end of each level. It's built around a simple premise, but what that entails when you start actually playing it is so much more. And to be honest, it's kind of awesome. Now, fair warning, this game isn't finished. In fact, it's only just made it into early access on Steam. So content is really light and the whole thing is super bare bones right now. So you're probably going to see some bugs and general dumb shit in this video that's not supposed to happen. But that doesn't stop it from being a whole heap of fun. And this is one of those few times when I've been playing something in early access and felt genuinely excited. Right, so the whole thing's developed by a guy named Andrew Smith, which is about the most innocuous name for a game developer I think I've ever heard. Get to the Orange Door, or just Orange Door, as I'm going to be calling it for the rest of this video, is a parkour / shooter, with super fast, skill-based gameplay, a bullet time mechanic, and an awesome soundtrack. It all runs on the Unity engine, an engine which in the past has meant a game's either going to run at 300 frames per second or run like complete garbage. Luckily, it seems in this case, Orange Door runs pretty smoothly, and it also looks gorgeous as well. Levels feature purposefully blocky architecture, enemy models are basic and simplistic, and 80s sports cars and palm trees are used as in-game props. It's like a combination of Tron and Miami Vice, and it works pretty well. The only downside is that the visual options are a little bit basic and you can't turn off a lot of the visual effects, which is going to piss off a lot of people. So for now, if you're going to play this thing, you're just going to have to get used to it. Like the fact that your mum has me on speed dial. Schwacked. Now, currently in game, you've got 3 main modes. You've got Quick Play, Overhaul, and Arena. Quick Play is a series of small-sized levels just replayed endlessly. The goal here is to just kill all the enemies that spawn in before heading to the Orange Door. Then you get to the next one and you just do it all over again, earning points from kills that you can spend on buying items and weapons. Overhaul's almost like a parkour track combined with enemies. Now this is basically one long corridor, and you just need to find your way to the end of the level where the Orange Door is. Defend it for a bit, then you can exit. You can utilize the environment to get there faster, and enemies along the way offer up a bit of a distraction to finishing the course. There's unique starter cards for this mod too, so you can choose which weapons you begin with, which is about the only unique mechanic it offers, because otherwise it's mostly just the same as Overhaul. Lastly, Arena is just an arena, played endlessly as waves and waves of enemies just keep spawning in. Now this is akin to a survival mode where you just hold out as long as possible. And it's also the best mode to screw around in and experiment with all the weapons and abilities. It's also the easiest mode to get used to the controls, and I'd say it's the mode I spent the most time dicking around with too. What really makes the whole thing so much fun though is the weapons, all 22 of them. And ammo for all of these is infinite, so you've just got to worry about reloading, making this neon gun porn at its absolute finest. For starters, you've got like 5 different kinds of pistols, from basic single shot firing pistols, up to full auto pistols and even a revolver. The revolver is the kind of thing that would make Dirty Harry green with envy. Now this bad boy pretty much kills everything in a single hit, and it is fucking glorious. The only downside being that it has a slow fire rate and can only fire 6 shots before reloading, but goddamn son, this thing is awesome. Then you've got a bunch of different assault rifles, submachine guns, and even what's basically a few LMGs. I think the submachine guns are probably some of my favourite weapons just for their fast firing rate and how great they feel to use. With the shotguns, you've got another 4 or so different variants. So you've got like a basic pump action shotgun, then you've got a double barreled shotgun, then there's like a semi-auto, which is kind of like a Spaz 12. Then of course a fully automatic shotgun, which may as well be an AA-12. And this thing right here is where the boner is made. I mean, aside from the absolute devastation this thing can dish out, it just looks and sounds awesome, creating some really impactful looking particle effects when you use it and just shredding through everything. It also has a huge drum magazine, meaning you can keep firing pretty much as you want to. And you can even use a katana too, in case you really want to get into the whole cyberpunk samurai role-playing thing. The katana's even got a nothing personal kid alternate fire mode as well, which teleports you behind enemies to make it easier to kill them. Though half the time I did this, it teleported me through the floor and killed me. Still though, it's a pretty cool idea. If that ain't enough for your Sunny Jim, the list continues. You've got a grenade launcher, you've got a rocket launcher, there's a goddamn minigun, which when fired in slow motion makes it feel like you're tripping on acid. And there's even Orange Door's own version of the BFG called the BHG, short for Big Hecking Gun, which works exactly how I'd expect it to. You shoot it, then everything dies. Oh yeah, and there's a banana too. Yeah, a banana. The only one that I think seems a little bit out of place is what's basically the game's version of the sniper rifle. Only because aiming through a scope just seems out of place in a game with this style of gameplay. And it really doesn't do enough damage to compensate the way that it restricts your field of view when you're aiming through the scope. Same thing with the marksman rifle, which is a burst fire rifle that feels a little bit like a FAMAS. But even the weapons that aren't that amazing are still kinda fun to use, which I think is a testament to how good the shooting actually is. Getting your hands on these weapons in the current build is a little bit odd. Now, enemies only drop 4 weapons. They'll either drop the pistol, the submachine gun, the shotgun, or the assault rifle. Everything else you've got to use console commands to spawn them all in. You've also got like a dozen or so equipment items you can use as well. The one that you start with by default is a medical bag that heals you faster than the regenerating health does. But there's also a few different kinds of grenades. You can get the ability to dual wield weapons or even find a phone that stops time, allowing you to kill a bunch of enemies quickly before it resumes. Combine this thing with a revolver and it's high noon time. Or how about a goddamn black hole shuriken? Because yeah, that's a thing that exists in this game. And what's also neat is how the cooldown for items is shown as this little circle around your crosshair, so it doesn't bog the UI down with a needless status bar. The amount of mobility in Orange Door is also what makes the gameplay so enjoyable. Now, if you've ever played Titanfall 2 or Apex Legends, the controls are going to feel very similar. In fact, I'd argue that they're pretty much exactly the same, just a little bit faster. So on the basic side of things, you can sprint around quite quickly. You can press crouch when running to slide, which gives you a bit of momentum, and can even be used when landing to maintain speed as well. And like in Titanfall 2 and Apex Legends, when you crouch, the weapon model even tilts to the side as well. Next, you've got both the double jumping and wall running, along with being able to grapple up ledges. And then combine all of this with the level design, which uses things like large billboards and shipping containers as props, which might seem out of place but has that benefit of giving the player this sandbox of movement options. On top of all of that, there's a really high amount of jump control. That's to say that when you're in the air, you can move around pretty freely. You can literally do a complete 180 if you're in mid-air and want to change your direction on the fly. And if that's not enough for you, there's also no lock on the Z-axis, similar to what it was like in Dusk, where you can aim downwards and do a full 360 if you really want to. And this is pretty handy when you've been launched up into the air and need to fire on enemies directly below you. It all just culminates in making the game feel super smooth and super fast to play, and it might be some of the smoothest controls in any first-person shooter I've ever played. One of the items you get is like the long jump module from Half-Life but on steroids. It's even called long jump in the game. And this thing propels you forward at a super fast speed to the point that it kinda breaks the game at times. Same thing with the grappling hook, another item that helps to increase your base movement speed. Or how about injecting yourself with orange juice? Yeah, one of the power-ups in this game is orange juice, which makes you move even faster for a period of time as you're running around and bouncing off the walls on a sugar high. Seeing how people can exploit these items and the movement controls is going to be really funny to watch, and it really facilitates that style of frenetic, over-the-top gameplay. Melee attacks are also kinda super important. For starters, a melee attack is really powerful. It can kill certain enemies in a single hit and others in 2 or 3, and there's no real cooldown to it, so you can just kinda spam it as much as you want. But it's also handy because you can melee during a weapon reload, which means even when you're reloading, you're not completely defenseless, and the melee attack doesn't interrupt the reloading animation. But I think thirdly, it's just good because it forces you to get in close to the enemies. You could easily play the whole thing hanging back and shooting at enemies from the top of a shipping container and hiding away when you need to get your health back. But that's about as fun as painting your balls with nail varnish. Running around and kicking everything to death in between emptying magazines of an SMG into someone's face, combined with running up the walls and double jumping like a madman, is what makes this whole thing so enjoyable. And if you're just complaining that the game isn't fun because the shooting is bad or the enemies keep killing you, well, I'm sorry to say, but you're actually playing the game wrong. Does that mean the whole thing is perfect? Well, no, of course not. I mean, there are still problems, there have to be. I think the main problem with the whole thing, and sadly it's a pretty major one, is that the enemies in this game are basically hit scanners. Now you can outrun their bullets to an extent, and if you're mobile enough and using your surroundings as cover, you can break their line of sight long enough that they can't kill you. But sooner or later during combat, you're just going to have to run off and let your health regenerate, and it is a bit lame. It's a bit of a buzzkill when you're wall running and firing on someone on the ground, and you can see your health bar just getting melted by some jackass who's not even in your field of view. I would really prefer it if the enemy attacks were projectile based, or at least if their weapons were slowed down somewhat, because it does take a lot away from the skill based aspect of the shooting. It's kind of like in Max Payne, how it seemed like the weapons were hit scanning, but there was a slight delay between when a shot was fired and when it hit its target, giving you the ability to almost outrun certain weapons at certain distances. And this is what I think Orange Dawn needs, because otherwise it's going to make the shooting feel kind of frustrating. I also think the scale of things feels slightly off. Now, enemies almost seem to be too small in contrast to the size of the environment, and it can sometimes feel like you're shooting at ants. It can make precision tricky at times, especially when you're airborne and zipping all over the place. And what's weird too is how hitboxes for weapons are really small, but then it seems the hitboxes for melee attacks are really big. The other thing is that the whole thing's really light on content. Now that is understandable considering it's still in early access, but I can see that turning off a lot of people, and to be honest, I don't blame them. The whole early access thing is a slippery slope, and there's been countless games that have come out under that category and then just disappeared into obscurity and never been heard of again. I know, I've played a bunch of them, and they've all just fell off the face of the earth after a few months. But having said that, there's a huge update to the game that's just come out, adding in some more content, like a more refined combo system, and also working on the way that the point system works so you can buy items more quickly. So I just don't see this thing happening with Orange Dawn, because even as it is right now, it's still really fun to play and has a whole heap to offer. And I think it's really going to shine with the custom maps and the level editor. A lot like Maximum Action, and it's going to benefit a lot from the community content. I would play the absolute shit out of any kind of obstacle course or parkour map that the community creates. The other thing that might turn off some people is the whole 80s vibe it's got going on too, and yeah, I get it. Everything seems like it's set in the 80s these days, even in TV shows like Stranger Things. It's a decade that has a really unique aesthetic and it's instantly recognizable, but people who are getting a little bit over that whole time period aren't going to be won over by this. Now, if you hurry, you can get the game while it's on sale for $14, which I think is 14 buckaroos well spent. Otherwise, it's going to be $21 when fully priced. That's of course the price we pay in Kangaroo Land. Either way, I think Get to the Orange Door has a whole lot of potential, and it's going to offer up as much replayability as you want to get out of it. It doesn't hold your hand and it can be punishing at times, but when all the pieces come together and you're wall running in slow motion and gunning guys down with a blocky, retro-futuristic automatic shotgun, you'll probably forget about all of the bad shit. And if nothing else, like I said, it really does have an amazing soundtrack.